Hello everyone, I'm Christina. Welcome to the show. This show will be about my organic garden located in Southern California in San Diego. And I will look with you together at the roses that are still blooming right now in my garden. And also we will have a look at plants that I have planted recently into the ground. Some of them are doing well and some of them are not so great. I think mainly due to our very hot weather that we were having lately, and there's just no end in sight. Even today it is right now 84 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 29 degrees Celsius for my non-American viewers, which is really quite warm for the end of October, almost the end of October. But of course, you know, as a human being, you like the warmth. But yesterday it was very hot. Hi KMD 2210. Thanks that you are joining. I'm Christina, and I'm just scoping about my organic garden located in San Diego, and I'm showing the roses that are blooming right now. So going back, so the rose that you are seeing right here is a very beautiful pink floribunda. The name is Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I don't know if it comes across over the camera of the phone, but it's kind of a cool pink. It has almost a silvery sheen. It's really a very beautiful rose, and I will step back a little bit so that you can see the whole bush. And as you notice, there are quite a few blooms on it, which I think is still remarkable for the heat that we were having, the water restriction that we are having, that the rose is still able to produce such a nice flush. Let me just turn and as the next thing, let's look at a plant. This is Scepter'd humelo. And this is a plant actually that I planted recently. It was planted in terrible heat, and by now, again, it's a little bit dry. It needs some water, but by now you can see it's really growing happily. It makes new leaves. You can see it in the center. So this one really has, I think, put roots down, and I think it will survive here in my garden. I like the light, fresh green color of the leaves quite a bit, and I have two more plants, and these will be the next two plants that I will be planting in the garden. Turning to the right side, we are still in the front yard, so here's one more of the Scepter'd humelo. This one will probably go in the spot close to the this hand-painted Portuguese jar, which I showed last time already, so I won't dwell on it. Whoops, I have a bee very close to me, which is fine, but I just want to make sure that I don't get stung by an unexpected movement for the bee. Another plant that I just have planted recently is this Verbena Bonariensis. And this is really a little bit of a sad story. It looked wonderful when I planted it, and as you can see, the flowers are dried up. I don't know what happened, but briefly after I planted the plant, the flowers just shriveled, and it's supposed to bloom at this time of the year. Actually, it was the reason why I planted this plant, because I hope to have some autumn blooms in the garden. On the positive side, as you can see in the middle, it's making new green leaves, so I think it will survive, which is good. I can already give away that I have planted two more of them, and we will look at them in a moment, and they are not doing so great. So one of my most beloved roses is the Prince. One gorgeous bloom here in the moment. Yesterday it was very hot, much hotter than today, and very windy, and the bloom has a little bit of damage, but I think you can still see the beauty of the color of this rose. We are passing by a Salvia Mystic Spires Blue, and I don't know if that happened in your garden as well, but the plant looked good, and it still looks good. It's still flowering, but I had that last year too. You can see this stalk last week when I periscoped. It had fresh green leaves. new growth, and you can see, especially at the bottom, now everything is dried up and shriveling. So I think this branch will die back to the ground, sadly. But there's nothing that I can do about it. It's weird because the plant did that last year too, and by now it's kind of leaving the middle of the obelisk that I have planted it in. You can see that it kind of moved to the right, and I think I will get a new replacement of this plant. The plant itself, Salvia mystic Spires Blue, is a great plant for my climate, but I would like to plant a new plant smack in the middle, right smack in the middle of the obelisk. Let's look at another plant that I just planted very recently. This is a daylily. It's called Gentle Shepherd. And this one actually looks pretty good. Despite the heat and the very odd conditions that we are having lately, I think this will grow in. And I'm not 100% sure, but it already, I think, let me just look. Now, I thought it would make a new leaf, but I think it really will grow in. It looks fine to me. So we have passed already and had a look at Our Lady of Guadalupe, so I will just walk by. Again, beautiful rose, very lovely, almost year-round. The only problem that it has, it gets mildew from time to time, but it doesn't prevent the rose from blooming. So moving to the left, here is really kind of the saddest thing that I have to report. This is another Verbena Bonariensis, and I think this plant is dead. So I will cut it down to the ground very soon, and we'll see if something comes up from the roots, but I don't think so. This just did not survive the transplant from the container into the ground. And again, I blame our unusual hot weather and of course the water restrictions for that. And here's the third Verbena Bonariensis. And here you can see clearly some hope. There are green leaves on the plant, but also in the middle you see very dead and brown branches. But I think overall the plant will survive. So I will cut those out. I will probably also cut down all the flower heads that I had hoped to bring some color into my autumn garden, and then just wait for next year and hope that the plant will do better. We are passing another rose. This is another rose of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and as you can see, this is also blooming quite nicely. So the roses are really what are saving my garden right now. My front yard is fairly small, and they just bring color into the front yard in a very nice way. To the left of the rose, there's another daylily, the Gentle Shepherd, that I have planted recently. And this one, I'm not so sure. It doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't look so good. So I just hope it will grow in. We just need to wait and see how it will be doing. And let's just walk in the direction of the backyard. We are passing Marie Pavier, another very beautiful rose, and you can see this rose is flowering quite nicely still, and it's still producing plenty of new sprays with buds. So here I know that I will enjoy this rose for still at least for 2 weeks in flower. Then here in this little corner, this is Pretty Jessica. This is an English rose bred by David Austin. It is a very beautiful rose, and here's one bud that's just opening. Just want to show it to you. It's, as I said, a very pretty pink rose. So let's continue the tour, and we are moving towards the backyard. But before we do that, I have to show you my flower bed at the right side of the house, and here's my third Floribunda, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Also quite a bit of blooms here, kind of saving my autumn garden from boredom. And here comes something where I'm actually excited about, even though on the first glance you may not be so much. So here, last week there still has been a huge hybrid tea rose called Sweetness. And I was so happy that my gardener was willing to dig out the rose last Wednesday. I helped him with that. It was a tremendous amount of work. I think the root ball was at least 4 feet across, and he got it out and lifted it out, and then took tons of farm mousse out of the root ball, and I planted the rose in a big container, cut it all back, and I just hope that it survives and I can transplant it into the backyard later and put another bigger and more vigorous rose in this spot. So there will be another rose, and of course not this empty patch of soil. Another thing that I'm quite happy about, I have an Alstroemeria planted here, which is a very nice one, because here's still one stalk with flowers. This is Alstroemeria Little Miss Sophie, and this plant kind of totally retracts into the ground when it is too hot, which is okay with me, but I don't want to see a bare patch of soil in the heat of summer here. So I will dig this plant out and plant it also in the backyard, because I like the plant very much, so I will rescue it, but I will plant another rose here. So then we will have, hopefully in short, Our Lady of Guadalupe here, another most likely white rose here, and then in this spot I will plant most likely Mary Rose, which I have already growing in a big container in the backyard. And that's where we are heading towards to right now. So just come with me. We are passing a climbing iceberg rose, also still in flower, and then we go through the garden gates by the side of the house, and I will show you some more roses and other things in the backyard. So I just have to open the garden gate and close it. Our dog, just to make sure that he's in, he stays in. Here, this gate I opened already. And there we are. This is our backyard. This is the pool and the spa. And the ones who are more regular viewers know this view already. We definitely have quite a nice view into a valley from our house. So just maybe stopping by here for a moment. Behind the spa last week, my husband, let me just make sure, so I'm kind of going over the bridge between the spa and the pool, make sure that I don't fall in. So my husband and I, we planted a new rose. This is Bewitched, and this is a hybrid tea rose. And I'm quite happy. I don't see any new growth on this rose, but it hasn't dropped any leaves. It looks kind of really okay. So I hope it will survive the transplant well, and I hope maybe next week I will already see a few new leaves on this plant. It's a very beautiful pink flowering hybrid tea rose. The flowers are huge. It would be really great if it would start to grow in this spot here. I have to say that I had planted another beautiful hybrid tea rose called Memorial Day in the spot this summer, and it actually died within a few weeks. So that was quite a disappointment, because I really had pampered this own root plant from a teeny tiny baby plant bought at an online nursery, actually over years in containers, and then the moment it was in the ground it was dead. But that's life of a gardener, so I think everyone who gardens is familiar with that. Let me just walk to another direction of the garden with you. So back to what I just said, I think every gardener is familiar with that. We just have to live with that and just not give up, but move on and plant something else. We are just passing Moon Dance, another very pretty hybrid tea rose, and what's not so nice, you see at the base of the petals of the plant we have tons of ants, and they are there, I think, feeding on the aphids. So this is life of an organic gardener. I'm okay with that. You know, they come and go, and some blooms are not in perfect condition, but rather than spraying anything, I live with this and know that ants and other insects want to live too. This is a remarkable drought-tolerant plant. This is Dihondra sericea, and I really like the silver, bluish, greenish leaves. And this is really, I think, the most drought tolerant plant that I have in my garden. I think it's looking so pretty with the heart-shaped plants. But let's move on to a few more roses that I want to show you. One I didn't plan to show you, but it's just crossing our way. This is Candace Beauty, also producing a very beautiful apricot colored bloom. So let's move on to the rose flowers that I want to show you. So they are actually in my hybrid perpetual bed. There's not too much going on, you know, see they are not big time flowering time in this bed, but the blooms that are there are quite beautiful. And let me show you Grandmother's Head first. So this is one of the beautiful flowers of Grandmother's Head. And that's a pretty interesting rose. This is a found rose, which means it has been found in Southern California, and nobody knows where this rose actually is coming from. I think it has been found in one of the gardens of the older houses in Southern California, and people have rescued the rose, but the origins are unknown even up to today. And I can tell you, this rose smells so incredibly strong. It has these warm, old garden rose fragrance. This is really fantastic. You know, if you close your eyes and just smell it from where I'm standing, you are really transported into a totally different world. It's a wonderful rose, and as you can see, there are a few more flowers, and there are actually quite a few buds on this rose. So I just have to cut out this huge leaf of the strelitzia and give the rose a little bit more light. And I may cut a few, you know, a little plonk for my house and just enjoy the fragrance indoors. Then we are moving a little bit further to the left, and here we have an old garden rose. It's called Yolande d'Aragon. Beautiful French name. I hope I pronounce it halfway correctly. So Yolande d'Aragon, beautiful filled flower, so many petals, and again, great fragrance, very lovely fragrance. So then just let me take you to my, what I call the pot ghetto. This is the area where I store plants that I have bought but didn't have a chance to get them in the ground, or some plants are just growing in containers here. And I definitely wanted to show you this spray of roses. Isn't that beautiful? Such a beautiful shape of the flowers. And the name of this rose is Scepter'd. That's a rose bred by David Austin, again an English rose. And actually I can't wait to get this baby in the ground. Of course, always when I'm trying to show the rose flowers, wind is setting in and the picture is not very clear. So I hope when I hold it a little bit that you can see better. So again, this rose is Scepter'd, beautiful rose bred by David Austin. Then what I would like to show you, as I said earlier, I have dug out, my gardener has dug out, and I helped actually, the hybrid tea rose Sweetness, and I planted this rose in a huge container. And as you can see, right now it's just a bunch of brown sticks. You see how big the canes are. I think I would estimate that they are an inch thick. And what I'm hoping is that the rose is making new leaves, and that this will happen soon. So I will revisit this rose with you and will report if it survives or if it doesn't survive the transplant. Then, just looking at the opposite side, I wanted to reward my gardener for all this hard work, and he was also choosing a part of the rose for himself. What you just saw is the middle of the rose, so the biggest and strongest part, and I thought that might be a good idea to try to keep that, but he decided to take a piece from the side of the rose, and I think that was probably a very smart decision. So this rose has just one cane, and you see it's not very thick, but it has a small head, or a small root ball, and it has caplet leaves, and I think the chance that this is surviving and starting to flower are pretty good. So, but I'm happy to give it to him, and if I lose mine, that's okay, because this rose then can still be bought So it's not a sweetness is not a rare hybrid tea rose. It's actually a lavender, beautiful lavender hybrid tea rose, by the way, with a very strong rose scent. So just turning back, I want to have a look at my irises with you, as I do every week. And you see now there's really progress. So this one is the variety best band, and now you can really see a new fan. It's already, I would say, maybe 4 to 5 inches tall. And this is the most vigorous grower of the 3 iris rhizomes that I just planted a few weeks ago. And I don't know if that's just the plant in coincidence, or if that is a sign that this is a very vigorous iris in my climate, but I'm pretty happy with the progress. Then we have a look at the other 2. Here we have Clarence also making new fans, but you see how much smaller those are, but at least the rhizome starts actively growing. That's good. And at the very last, here we have Rio Vista, and you see that the fans are also starting to emerge from the original rhizome. So that was it from my garden. I hope you join me next week again. Thanks for everyone who came in watching. And if you want to see more from my garden, please follow me on Periscope. I'm scoping weekly about my garden, showing the progress, new things, what works, what doesn't, and I'm happy to share this with you. And I'm also writing a garden blog called organicgardendreams.com. I repeat, Organic Garden Dreams with an S at the end of dreams.com, and I'm posting photos, plant names, and other interesting information on my blog. So if you are interested in that, I would be happy if you would stop by there as well. Thanks again everyone for watching. Hopefully I see you next week. Bye bye.